stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
MHS, thank you. MHS Student Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to invite up Dan Riley, the principal of MHS, Dr. Dan Riley, to come up and introduce our students so they can present to the school committee. Thank you, Dan.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. At this time, I'd like to welcome Adam Hussein, who represents the class of 2022, to come up and give his presentation to the committee.
Hey everyone, like you said, I'm Adam Hussein. I am the Senior Student Advisory Council representative, and tonight I'll be discussing the later start time as it's affected pretty much everyone in our school. I just wanted to start by saying I really respect and appreciate all the effort that went in during last year's discussion on this issue. I know there was a lot of back and forth with the students and the administration, and I did genuinely feel like some students' voices were being heard on this issue, which is always great. I also want to acknowledge all the effort that has been put in by the school and everyone else involved to make this work logistically. It has been an adjustment, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm overall hearing a negative reaction to this change from my peers. Some, like myself, are enjoying being able to sleep in a little bit later and feel like it's really having a positive effect on our sleep. Others are indifferent to the issue altogether, but some are just not adjusting quite as well. The main complaint I'm hearing from students is about the traffic in the mornings. Since the schools are now all starting at similar times, everyone's navigating to school around the same time. Buses, parents, and student drivers are all experiencing delays in the morning. And I heard from one underclassman that their bus has already been late to school 6 times this year. It is still settling in, so hoping it gets better. I also know we were having some issues early on with the dismissal of students. Particularly in the high school, the year began rocky in terms of students' arrival times. To remedy this, students are expected to wake up earlier to beat the traffic, which can defeat the purpose of the later start time altogether. I'm also hearing from many student athletes, workers, and those involved in extracurricular activities that the later start time is having a significant impact on their time after school. The later dismissal is interfering with the end of sports practices and meeting times, which ends up pushing their homework and other responsibilities further in the day, making them feel like they have less time. Although this is slightly helped by the new homework policy for those it applies to, it is still an ongoing issue. This is also having an impact on many of the first period teachers, as some of their students are not able to consistently be at school on time. This creates interruptions in the class instruction and can set classes back a little bit. While I do personally prefer the later start time, I'm hearing from a large portion of the student body that they would rather it be pushed back to its original time. I recognize, of course, that there's no perfect scenario in which everybody wins, but from what I'm hearing, this has not been a very helpful change to many. I want to once again echo in my admiration for all that the school committee has done to make this year possible and for allowing me to speak tonight. Thank you all for taking the time to hear my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee members? No?
I had a question for Adam.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
So you had voiced that many of the students you talked to found this as a negative change, but you yourself found this as a positive change. So I was wondering, as a student who is involved in like extracurriculars and has stuff to do after school, but you find this as a positive change, what about that? How is it easier for you to navigate, and what advice would you give to those students who are still adjusting to this change?
Absolutely. So personally, I've always wanted school to start a little bit later. The early time has been tough for me. This kind of gives me a chance to have a little bit more time to work on stuff later in the day. I know that it's really just pushing everything back half an hour, so I do get to sleep in a little bit more. I think if people can make the adjustment and can start waking up a little bit earlier, or maybe just rearranging their schedules around the new times, I think there is possibility for everybody to adjust to it positively. I just do think there's always going to be that settling in period at the beginning of a new change like this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee?
I just want to thank you, Adam. I appreciate your report. I know, and later on we're going to discuss this a little bit with Mr. Diaz's report, but there are issues with the buses that have nothing to do with the start time. It has to do with the fact that we don't have enough buses and bus drivers, and that's going to get better. So I'm just wondering, you know, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some overlap
Yeah.
with those issues there. Like, I do think it's going to settle in and get better. Yeah, that's just what I've been hearing from students. It's still early on to tell.
Thank you.
Tennessee.
Thank you. You made me think of something, because you mentioned about the traffic. It seems like, and maybe it's just, you know, my perspective, that traffic has been getting better as everybody's been able to adjust, understanding like where the flow and where the, you know, tightness is. Do you feel like you've seen improvements?
Yeah, since the beginning of the year, I've definitely seen improvements, but there is still, like I know in my first period class, a couple kids are always like coming in late. I do think there may be like personal things going on, but it is still like an ongoing issue that I've noticed, so I did want to bring it up. But it definitely has gotten better, and I think a lot of great effort went into making it better since the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, thank you, because I mean, I guess I was seeing the improvements of different,
Yeah.
you know, different traffic patterns happening, like the SRO, I know at the middle school today kind of pulled out, made an opportunity for a lot of traffic to kind of get out and then, you know, let people head on back down the street. And I think with those type of improvements, I think things will ease up. It's definitely a change, and you have to understand about the navigation around the middle school, which obviously leads to the high school area too. But
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next.
Our representative for the class of 2023 is Jessica Rosenwig, and she could not be here tonight, so Adam is going to present for her as well. Welcome back, Adam.
Sorry about the confusion. Jessica really wanted to be here, but yeah, she was having like COVID-related issues, so she sent me something to read for all of you guys. She's, of course, the junior student advisory council representative, and she wanted to share some student perspectives on what it's been like going back to school. I'll be reading directly from her words, so when I say I really mean her. As everyone knows, last year was really challenging on many levels, and we had to adapt a lot in order to accommodate these challenges. Thankfully, this year, the whole school has been able to return full-time. This is definitely a huge transition for everyone, and I made sure to reach out to a couple students to get feedback on what it's been like for them. The most common theme I heard was that many felt excited to be back. People have said that it has been really nice to see classrooms that are full of students again, talking and laughing with one another in comparison to the very silent Zooms that were going on last year. Another student was appreciating having school events back, such as football games, where we're all able to have fun. Some students also voiced that they were definitely feeling a little bit more stressed due to the increased workload they were getting compared to last year, and that it was a little difficult to adjust. But overall, people have said that they missed being in person and feel really grateful to have a more normal school year. However, one student voiced that they felt like COVID regulations were not being enforced well enough. They said that they were seeing a lot of students abusing the mask mandate, like not wearing their mask properly or taking them off inside, for instance. They also said that they wish teachers were still wiping down desks. Personally, I know being back has been a lot better for me on many levels. I had a really difficult time with school last year, and being back has helped me learn better, get more work done, and focus. Like others have said, it has been really nice to be back in a normal classroom environment and have our normal activities as well, like sports, clubs, and other school events. However, I know I'm still stressed and anxious in general about school. On top of this, on top of this, the year has already been the most academically challenging one I've experienced. Nonetheless, I feel that I can manage it all, knowing I can talk to my teachers in real life. I feel much better supported than I did last year, which relieves some of my anxiety. All in all, I think people are just happy to be back and have a much more normal year, even if it's not perfect. I want to thank you all for the work that you've put in to make our year the best it can be, and for taking the time to hear students' perspectives. She thanks you and wants you all to have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
I know she's not
Are you going to
here.
ask her a question?
I'm not asking her a question. It's an
You just
observation.
want to make a
Watching.
statement?
Yeah.
So maybe you can ask her and she can answer
No,
you.
it's not, it's actually more for Mr. Riley and Mr. Diaz. To her point regarding teachers wiping down desks, I know we still have hand sanitizer throughout the buildings. Is there maybe a possibility of leaving, a canister of wipes, so if a student does want to wipe down a desk when they come in the room, that they could do that themselves? I don't know, I'm just thinking for those who have that concern.
Yeah, we can certainly arrange for something. I can talk to Dr. Riley about this, make that available.
That may,
Absolutely.
alleviate some of the worries of some.
Absolutely. Yep, thank you. All right, our representative from the class of 2024 is Risha Kandaria, and I'll welcome Risha to the podium now.
You can pull it down if you want.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Risha Kandaria, and I'm going to be talking about fall sports. This season is the first full season back without COVID restrictions affecting how the game is played. Everyone is happy to be back to a season of normalcy. All student athletes and coaches agree that it is good to be back without having COVID restrictions that change the game. Field hockey captain Abby Hennessy says that everyone is excited to get back to normal sports. The game has changed a lot, so it's fun to play the way we always remembered. A big part of the return to fall sports is student sections. Many students who play sports gain some extra motivation now that student sections are back. On Friday, there was the football game against Doherty at Kelleher. There was a very big turnout in the student section. Coach Graham of the football team says that it serves as more motivation for the players to go out and play hard in front of their peers. It also creates an awesome game day environment, having the students back to cheer the players on. The return of student sections not only encourages student athletes to play harder, but is also a great opportunity for other students to support their peers. Athletic Director Mr. Rudzinski says that having all students come out to cheer on their peers was great to see, and it's great to be back. The football team has had a great start to their season with 2 wins and no losses. The field hockey team on Monday just had their first win, and Coach Wayman says that she hopes this is a turning point in the back half of their season. The volleyball team currently has 4 wins and 4 losses. The soccer team also had a great start to their season with 3 wins, but because of injuries, they are now at 3 wins and 2 losses. And a quick shout out to sophomore Ava Van Buskirk, captain of the soccer team, who is leading the team with 14 goals and leads all scorers in Central Mass Division II teams. Also, because of COVID, participation was both affected positively and negatively. Compared to last year, the number of students who participated in a sport has increased significantly. However, compared to years before COVID, there are less students. After talking to some students and coaches, a main reason why there are less people is because they are unsure of whether it is completely safe to play a sport right now without a mask, with the possibility of being affected by COVID. COVID has also, however, given motivation to students to try out a sport. For example, volleyball has had 54 students try out for the season who are excited to join and continue playing, and new students who are willing to try out something new. Since it is the first season back, it is expected that the numbers wouldn't be up as much as pre-COVID, but once there is more certainty, the numbers should start to increase again. We are glad to be back and glad to be able to support our teams. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Mrs. Hennessy.
Just a comment, I have to say, it's been a lot of fun to be back at the football games, to see the community out there, especially because prior to COVID, we were dealing with EEE. So there were, you know, it was a tough situation where the student body didn't have as much of an opportunity to have that experience at night. And it was great to see, like, the band out there, and, you know, if anybody has not had a chance to go to the football games, please go ahead and get out there. It's great to see the kids all enjoying what they're doing, and the administrators and staff that are there helping out. So love it. It's great to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Risha. Our last committee member tonight from the class of 2025 is Sarah Garner. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah Garner, and I am the freshman representative for the Student Advisory Committee. Tonight, I will be speaking on the transition for the class of 2025 from middle school to high school. I used a survey, and I found that 25% of the students did not come to the freshman orientation available. But from the students that I did have, most found it helpful, but some students said that they wanted it more detailed and organized since we didn't get as much of an opportunity last year. The freshman assembly that we had in the third day of school was fine, but it was not as helpful as some of the students said. They got some brief information on extra curriculars and school clubs, but they wish they would have learned more about them before they started. Students last year in 8th grade got a slideshow about what we offer at Marlborough High School, but it was more targeted for the juniors and seniors, talking about AP classes and the EMT program and college applications. So this left my class more confused than helped, and now they are looking for more explanations on credits and AP classes, which they do not have to worry about yet. My class has also been affected by the late schedule, as Adam mentioned, because their buses have been later than usual, and some of them have a new route than they did in the middle school. All in all, this transition has been pretty smooth, but there have definitely been some bumps along the way.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Yeah.
Hi, Sarah. Great presentation. I just had a question about what you, as a freshman class, do you feel, first of all, that, because I don't know when you made this presentation, do you guys still feel like you're lacking information, or do you think that some of the student body has reached out to teachers or guidance and gotten some information? And do you guys think it's like holistically you're like lacking information on just what to expect from high school, or are there specific areas that you guys think you maybe missed out on?
I definitely think that over the past couple of weeks it has gotten smoother, and I think it is just a general lack of information, not one specific spot, because I think that when we filled out our forms to pick our teams and pick our classes, we got some information, and in general we've gotten some information in 8th grade, but we just want to further what we've gotten to get really a nice explanation.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the committee? Ms. Bodenheimer.
Thank you. It's kind of not really a question, but sort of a question. Mr. Riley, hearing this, I'm wondering, because I know you have your student advisory council that you have, your students, and I don't know if that or group is started up yet, and if they have, does it include freshmen? Because I think this is valuable information that we could use to tweak orientations in the future.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. I appreciate Sarah's presentation. Sarah is on our Student Leadership Council at the school, and we met today for the first time.
There you go. Fantastic.
So, yeah, absolutely. Nice job. Any other questions for Sarah before she?
What did you just say?
So we have a club fair coming up tomorrow, too.
Oh, good.
For freshmen and sophomore students.
Excellent. Excellent.
We're expanding the orientation activities to actually happen over at least 3 events going into this year. So we took that tour schedule that happened for freshman orientation at the beginning of this year that Sarah talked about, and all of our 8th graders have already done that part of orientation as of last week. So they all visited Marlborough High School, and they did that tour format that Sarah experienced before school started up. We're going to be involving our 8th graders in our rally activities for Thanksgiving. And then we're also going to have a true orientation night before school begins next year that gives them more information based on exactly the feedback that Sarah provided tonight.
Fantastic. Great.
So the wheels are in motion, absolutely.
Ms. Hennessy.
Thanks. Do you think that there's a way of involving those 9th grade parents earlier as well? So it's not until, they have time to be able to talk with their kids a little bit ahead of time as well?
Absolutely. What we typically do is we try to organize a parent night through the PTO at Whitcomb. And we can do that again, but I can also ask the PTO if that has been effective. So we did not do that last year because of COVID,
Right.
but the previous year we did do that. And I think that a lot of our information, absolutely, when we talk about Marlborough High School, is geared towards all that we do, because even though the students coming in freshman year might not be concerned with advanced placement programming or our EMT programming or our early college high school programming, it is important for them to know that we offer those things, because that's what differentiates us from other options that they might have for high school. So, but I'm hearing Sarah loud and clear that to focus more on what freshman year is going to entail is something that would be beneficial to them.
Yeah, the parents may be able to pick up on the other stuff.
Yeah.
Where it kind of helps to have the 2 heads listening. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice job, guys.
Great job.
Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first item for the school committee, attached to my report, you can find my personal goals on the last couple pages. So that way you can take a look at that. I will bring that to the next meeting for approval. So if you have any feedback that you'd like to give me, I'm more than happy to take it between now and the next meeting. My second item, I did want to provide an update on COVID numbers for the city and the school. So attached, you can see the total positive student cases at MPS by date. So you can see for the 22nd, it went from the previous week of the 14th from 20 down to 7. That number has remained pretty constant. I believe we are at 8 today, just waiting on an update. So that number has remained constant. And then underneath that, I had the confirmed cases in the city of Marlborough. That was as of the 22nd. I do have an update on that as well. It is not 53 anymore. It is now 38 cases. So that has also gone down. And then I also provided the state reporting dashboard where they look at cases, testing, hospitalizations, and deaths. I will note that the total cases rose for 9 weeks and have, for the past 2 weeks, have gone down both weeks. So that's my update on the COVID information for the schools. I do believe I did get an email, Mr. Mayor, from Trish that did let me know that testing is now available at the hospital every day. So I do want to let folks know that. I believe in the morning, they're available every day now.
8 to 12, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's 8 to noon.
Yeah.
I've seen, coming in on Union Street, I've seen the line, so I know people are taking advantage of it, and our testing rate continues to go down as well, which is a good sign. Not testing rate, positivity rate. I apologize.
Yes.
Okay, update on elementary class sizes. I just wanted to provide this to the committee. This is before October 1st, so there might be some slight changes before the next meeting. But from what we predicted, we projected 2,389 students at the elementary level. We have 2,391 currently enrolled, so we were off by 2 students, which is pretty close.
Pretty darn good.
We certainly had a larger first grade than we were expecting. So we're up to 434 first graders. I think we were expecting a bump there. I don't think we were expecting that big of a bump. So that might be something that we're looking to address in next year's budget. We had put into our long-term plans that we were looking to add an FTE. We might need to add to an FTE for second grade for next year. based on those numbers. Okay, and that is my report, Mr. Mayor.
Questions for the superintendent? Seeing none, Ms. O'Brien.
Thank you. Want to update the committee on wraparound services, and I've asked Kayla Flaherty-Dawson and Rafael Silva to be here tonight for the report. I'm pleased to introduce Kayla Flaherty-Dawson as our first wraparound service coordinator. Kayla is a bilingual Spanish licensed social worker who did her graduate work with Latino families. She comes to us from Malden, where she worked with early intervention to provide identified families with resources to meet basic needs. We also welcome Rafael Silva into the role of a wraparound service case manager. He meets the qualifications of a licensed social work associate. He was originally hired for Marlborough Public Schools as a Portuguese translator in 2018, and he's also served as one of the district's bilingual family liaisons. He already has established relationships with many of our Portuguese-speaking families through his previous work. Both Kayla and Rafael have been busy during the last month reaching out to community resources and meeting with representatives of different organizations and agencies to introduce themselves and establish relationships. They've begun to put information on the district website under the Registration Center and Family Outreach page, and will continue to expand ways to communicate their services to families. Their offices are located at RPOC, where they can be an immediate support for newly registered homeless families and a resource for RPOC referrals. The district has developed a referral system for the school adjustment counselors at the building levels for case management for students and families with complex needs that would either be directed to our district wraparound services or to our continued collaborative contract with Family Success Partnerships, or FSP. The FSP services will be reserved for referrals that are expected to need more long-term case management. Kenya Franjul, who oversees FSP at Aspet Valley Collaborative, will be mentoring Kayla and Rafael throughout the year. As Kayla and Rafael become more established in developing this new district support for our families, they'll give a presentation to the school committee later on this school year. So welcome, Kayla, and welcome Rafael to this role, but he's been here for a while, and Mr. Diaz has also tapped his services as a bus driver, and heard he's taking the test this Thursday.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you both. Welcome.
That's great. Welcome.
Thank you, welcome.
Any questions from the committee? Yeah, Ms. Hennessy.
I'm just going to say, I'm so glad you're here and that you're here in a different role, you know, expanded role. But we've consistently been looking for any opportunities to make sure that we're doing so much of this outreach. And this is so important. And thank you, because it's pivotal for our community. So I'm just grateful that you're here and that hopefully you can help us on continuing to expand with opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is tonight's update from Finance and Operations. Transportation. I want to thank the Marlborough community for their patience with transportation services during the first month of school. The driver shortage has caused some routes to be run later than scheduled, which obviously I understand is disruptive to our students' academic day. And that was some nice feedback that we got earlier that shows that. Schools have been making every effort to notify families real time when buses are running behind. If a parent out there has not been receiving messages from the schools, it's very likely that we have the wrong contact information for you. Please reach out to your school so that we can have the correct information to contact you. The district would like to recognize the efforts of the bus drivers that we do have that have been transporting our students. A shortage of drivers increases the demand upon our existing crew, and they have stepped up to the task in a big way. Drivers have continued to go above and beyond every day by driving extra routes to assist the district and cover absences. Thanks to their commitment, we've been able to run 100% of the scheduled bus routes this year. To honor the efforts of our existing bus drivers, Superintendent Bergeron is naming Friday, October 1st, this Friday, our Bus Driver Appreciation Day. Students throughout the district will join us in expressing our gratitude to their drivers. Parents and other members of the community are welcome to join us on Friday. Food services. All meals continue to be included in Marlborough. Breakfast and lunch are available to students every day at no cost. The participation of families in our meal program is very beneficial to the school department. We encourage families to take a break from meal prep and allow us to cook for your students. We're always accepting feedback. Feedback can be sent to me directly through my email. And we're also open to student feedback. So over the past couple of weeks, I don't know if you've noticed on our Instagram, but we're allowing the high school students to vote on a special meal every Friday. And we're getting some nice feedback that way as well. So parents and students that would like to give us some feedback on what would encourage them to participate, we're very appreciative of that feedback. Facilities. The facilities department completed the below list of work in our school buildings over the summer. We would like to express our sincere gratitude to General Foreman Dan Jackson and DPW Commissioner Sean Dival for the continued attention to our school buildings. We had a lot of work done over the summer. The list is extensive. It's a page and a half. I'm not going to go through every single one, but I would answer any questions that the community has.
Questions from the committee? Any questions from the committee? Ms. Matthews?
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, have we seen any increase at all in the food participation for meals?
That's a good question. Because of the method in which we were serving breakfast last year, we were serving breakfast at home. All students were encouraged to take breakfast home on the way out of school. We're no longer able to do that this year due to the current USDA guidelines. So we've seen a decrease in the participation in breakfast. Lunch participation has seen a small increase, maybe 2%, over FY19, which was our last normal year. So we're going in the right direction. I am hoping to get to 75% participation, and we're not there yet. We're hovering at around 60%. So we've got some ground to make up.
Mr. Bodenhanger? Yeah.
I can say, from just what I've observed in school, I think we might still need to get the word out about free lunch and breakfast being free for all. But I know I've heard so many students being appreciative that lunch is now free, and I see students grabbing that opportunity to get lunch or breakfast. So that's just what I've seen from the ground level.
Thanks, Addie.
Great.
So I'm just curious how breakfast is working, because I remember prior to COVID, there were like carts by the front door where they had to go. Like, how is it happening in the various?
Every school is doing it a little bit differently, depending on the grade level. At the elementary schools, we're doing breakfast mostly in the classrooms. Middle schools serving breakfast in the cafeterias, and I believe in the high schools in the cafeteria as well.
So if it's in the classroom, it's just a matter of a student saying yes or no because it's there, or are they getting it somewhere else and bringing it to the classroom?
It's there. Well, at Keene, they have the breakfast at carts when the kids come in. There's one in the first floor hallway, and then one at the top of the stairs. And one of the ladies from the cafeteria is there, you know, trying to promote them, the students taking the breakfast as they're going to their class. And they eat within the classroom.
In the classroom, yeah.
That's the Keene model. They're all a little bit different. I know at Richer, the school, the cafeteria workers have breakfast ready and at the entrance of the classrooms when the students arrive. So it's slightly different for every school depending on what works for that site.
Okay.
But we're trying to encourage students as much as possible to take a breakfast in the morning.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Crusoe?
Yeah, Superintendent Bergeron, sorry. Just wondered what kind of activities you got planned for Bus Driver Appreciation Day? Is there some opportunity for us to get involved somehow?
We would love for you to be involved. That would be fantastic. I will say that at the last administrative meeting, we had 2 of our principals step up and agree to actually hand make some presents for some of our bus drivers. Apparently there's this thing called a cricket, which I was unaware of, but apparently you can make things with the cricket, so I'm not going to spoil what it is.
I know, I'm not.
But I will say that there's some nice things going home. I think Mr. Diaz is also going to provide lunch for the drivers over at the depot. He's shaking his head yes, so I remembered that part of the conversation. And I would just ask everyone in the community say thank you. That'd be nice. So, great. And I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't ask you for permission to declare it Bus Driver Appreciation Day, but I thought you'd be okay with that
It
one.
only affects the 5 buildings, so I don't care. Any other questions? Seeing none, minutes of September 14th.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question?
Again?
I'm sorry. So this list of stuff that was all completed, was there other stuff that we didn't get to? Or was everything that was initially proposed to get done this summer done?
Most of the items got taken off the list. Some of them I marked as ongoing. For example, over at Whitcomb, we're still working on the intercom system, same thing at the high school. And we're still installing some shutter-proof film at some Whitcomb windows. Some items are still spilling over from the summer. They're actively working on it.
Thank you, thank you.
Minutes of September 14th.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. All those in favor? Opposed?
Yes.
Carries. Public participation. Any public participation? Public participation. Seeing none. Staggered openings for 2021-22.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to invite up Dr. Riley to discuss staggered openings for the high school.
Good evening again, everybody. So 2 items back to back here. The first is our request for your consideration of staggered openings this year. We have PSAT, SAT testing on October 13. To just be completely forthcoming with this, we have started registrations. This conversation came up last year, this being the earliest time that we could have this on the agenda. So we do have over 200 students that are registered to take the PSAT and SAT test that day, who would benefit greatly from a staggered opening. In addition to that, we also have 3 days of MCAS testing, and that last day for science will include both our freshmen and our sophomore students this year. So it'll be a particularly large cohort taking the science MCAS. So we're here to ask for your consideration for those staggered opening days.
Questions from the committee? What's the pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Dr. Riley is also going to speak to modifications to the MHS midterm final assessments and term grading for this school year.
So in an effort to gain back as much instructional time as we can, building off of results from a committee that convened prior to COVID closing our schools in March of 2020, we were analyzing the assessment, the major assessment of students throughout the grade levels at MHS. I provided some of those results in summary in the memo to the committee. We also did some data analysis of the impact of the final and midterm exam grading criteria, which was that 20% per term, 10% per exam impact on student final grades. We found that 85 to 90% of students' grades went down as a result of that grading criteria. And so what we are proposing is to move away from a set schedule for midterms and final exams. We'd like to have more full instructional days built into our schedule. I gave the committee an analysis of just the time on learning that we potentially gain back with the 7 days of instruction that we dedicate to that schedule alone, which comes out to be just over 40 hours of instruction. In addition to that, as many of the teachers have pointed out to me, we also have the prep time that's needed for those major exams that takes place prior to the exam schedule happening, which also constitutes additional time on learning. So as we come back from a year where we had certain deficits in learning last year due to the COVID pandemic and its impact on our instructional model, we would like to look at a level grading, term grading distribution of 25% across all terms. Teachers will still have the opportunity to issue major summative assessments in the form of midterms and finals and courses that they fit nicely into. Other teachers will have the flexibility to not have to issue a midterm or a final to students that are already tested quite a bit throughout the year, including our sophomore students especially. So we ask for the committee's consideration on moving away from that schedule and reducing the number of early release days that we have previously built in so that we can have full instructional days, still providing an opportunity for both assessment and time on learning, essentially making it more beneficial to students and teachers.
What's the pleasure? There is no pleasure.
Well, I'll move to approve for the purposes of
Motion
discussion.
made and seconded to approve. Any discussion?
I have
Ms.
a
Barnhart.
The last part you said also had to do with early release days?
That is typically what I would be requesting at this meeting for all of those midterm and final exam days. I would be requesting that the committee release the school halfway through the day, and we would essentially run 2 major exams per day over the course of that schedule. So the reason why we connected it with the staggered opening request is because I'd like to request that we move away from that and we build in more instructional time by eliminating those early release days.
Ms. Matthews.
Was your question answered?
It was.
Okay. I guess I appreciate the increase of hours given back, because that is obviously a blessing there. I guess my question is the major summative assessments of the content that they're being taught, not necessarily the MCAS or the PSATs or SATs, but the actual content. I'm not saying either way that a major summative is the answer, but do you feel that we're heading in the direction of continuous assessment as opposed to bundled large summative?
Absolutely, that could be the result in certain grade levels. In other grade levels, like 11th and 12th grade courses, for example, our practice is going to be to still institute major summatives that would constitute more than maybe that 90-minute amount of time over an assessment. In part, as the students get ready to prepare to leave for college, they're still going to need that experience. Many of their college courses are going to still have that major summative assessment at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So the practice in and of itself is healthy. The problem with the schedule is it makes it a consistent practice that has to happen across all classes at the high school at all levels.
At a certain point in time.
So this change gives us flexibility where we can institute the major summative assessment piece where we need to, but it doesn't have to be a school-wide midterm final exam schedule.
Ms. Hennessy.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand, because I think I do, but I hear you about not everyone needs to, but obviously there's a certain portion that definitely needs to have that experience of the midterms and the finals.
Yep.
This is not saying we would not have them, they just would allow the flexibility for it to happen where it naturally needs to happen within certain courses, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So then I guess my next question would be, how will it be that you can affect the schedule, say, for the students that need to take those midterms or those finals, where they're going to have, the situation, I guess, the atmosphere for being able to take their testing in a way that would be beneficial for them?
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
if everyone's not together, which I get that, I just am wondering if we can affect the correct atmosphere to make it happen for them too.
Yeah, we absolutely think we can. We don't have the finalized solution to how that takes place. We could double up some periods, for example, for upper class courses in order to provide for an extended period of time. We could have exams that run as like part 1 and part 2 on back-to-back days. That's another option that we've talked about. So we definitely are going to come up with a solution to still help the major summatives happen where they need to happen. But what the change in the schedule will do for us is it won't lock all grade levels and all classes into having to do those assessments just because
Yeah.
the schedule is there to do it, right? So we want to take the opposite approach and say, let's come up with creative solutions for where the assessments should be happening without disrupting the rest of the school day for where it doesn't need to happen. And that's pretty much the premise of the proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I love that idea. That makes complete sense. And it, you know, I think to what Ms. Matthews was saying previously, I mean, I'm appreciative of trying to not make it so strict, so everyone has to be here, here, and here. You're building back in that time on learning. That's great. It's trying to find that balance, right, of where can you then provide that great opportunity and atmosphere for the testing situation, because all of these kids are gonna need to learn how to take tests. Whether you're not great at it or you're great at it, you need to have that experience to try and be successful, so.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
The committee that you had that studied this,
Yes, yep.
were there students on that committee?
I don't recall what the makeup of the body was. I know that it was definitely staff administration that were involved, and it was chaired by Mr. Bishop, who has the best working inner knowledge of Aspen. But I would have to ask if students were also included in that. I apologize for not knowing the answer off the top of my head.
That's fine, that's
It was,
fine.
it was almost a year and a half ago.
It was a
so-
long time ago, yeah. No, I get it. Can I put you on the spot?
I was
Do
just
you
gonna-
have any thoughts on this, Patty?
The staggered opening.
On basically not having specifically, specified weeks or days for
We-
tests.
We had discussed this in our principals council meeting today, and there are definitely a lot of benefits for students in the test taking aspect of it. We talked about how some classes you really just don't need to be taking those tests, and it really does take away from time on learning, but we as students can still appreciate. It would be nice to have those midterm and final tests as like review, just so maybe not completely doing away with the concept, but just tweaking it and making it a little bit more achievable, and I'm looking for the word, like not easier, but more digestible for students and for teachers as well, but still having it as a good way to review and to guide how well students are gauging curriculum, or if there are any tweaks that teachers can do to teach the curriculum better.
Can I one more question. So prior to all of this, I would presume that there are some courses that maybe a final research paper would suffice, and it's not an actual test.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's happened in the past, right?
Absolutely,
So
or
what
projects. Yep.
What did students do when they didn't have, if they didn't have a final? They just didn't come in.
That could be the case.
The time on learning really will show great.
There was a lot of interesting competition, too, built around our learning model when this was in practice. We had students who would do anything to not be sick from school, because part of the practice that was tied in was, of course, attendance. In order to be exempt from finals and midterms, you had to have a certain percentage of attendance.
Yes,
So,
right.
and
I'm remembering this now
and if
as
it
a
was,
parent.
and so it wasn't a very healthy experience at times. But on top of that, you would have students that might qualify from a grade percentage for the exemption, not qualify from an attendance variable, and then there would be these meetings with assistant principals to try and convince the administration to step in and still allow the exemption. Which I don't necessarily think that was building relationships with administration and teachers when these exemptions were being granted, because we wanted to support the students. We also wanted to support the teachers, but we'd find ourselves in the middle of that. I distinctly remember a former, actually superintendent in the district, who had said at one point, like, all assessment should be important. If an assessment can be exempted, then it kind of drops the importance of why that assessment is even in place, therefore questioning why are we having it to begin with, right? So there's been these really great conversations about the practice over the years. And I think when we actually looked at the data and we said, if our grading criteria is set up this way, we know that up to 90% of students' grades are being hurt by sitting for that major exam in the way the grading criteria is built. And it's your top level students that are impacted negatively because their course averages are so high that if their midterm and final grades do not match or exceed those course averages, like a 97, let's say, their grade only goes down when they sit for the exams. So it was things like that that were very revealing to us when we looked at the data, and that's why we essentially brought the proposal forward.
Yeah, and now that we're having this conversation, I'm remembering conversations that I've had with students who went off to college, and they were, they took 5 AP classes, and they, and they had perfect attendance, so they never took a final.
Yeah.
And then they went to college, and they got slammed, and they didn't know how to react to it. And it was pretty profound.
Sure.
So I think this makes sense.
Thank you.
I'm supportive.
A motion?
We
We already did. Any further discussion?
Mr. Caruso has a...
Mr. Caruso.
So I like to wait my turn. Just one, could you kind of give me I'm struggling with the term where assessments naturally fall, the need for them, I'm not quite sure what that means, naturally fall. Where would an assessment naturally fall? Like what type of a?
So I think the comment that was made by Mrs. Hennessy is tied into when you're taking a course, there are naturally reoccurring assessments that happen at the end of a unit. Those are also major summative assessments. And so those are constantly happening throughout the cycle of the school year, as well as then you tap in the midterm and finals. So for some students, the experience when they get to the end of the semester could be, and Hattie might be able to speak to this or elaborate on this, you might take a major test, and then the next week you're sitting for another major test that includes that major test and then all the other major tests you took before that during the semester. And that's when we have to start to think about whether or not we're over-testing students at a certain point because of the way that our system and our schedule is set up. I think that's what really sparked this conversation, was looking at what the student experience is at each grade level and thinking about how much testing is got to be balanced with how much learning. Where can we scale back the testing, if at all? And this is what we came out with.
So in the case of, you mentioned that perhaps there might be, that there might be a case where it would be like Part A, Part B test type of thing. Is that the determinant of the teacher?
We'll work within our content areas and the teacher teams of Common Courses, along with their supervisors and just common content in general, can come up with some consistency for that. Because if we're teaching the same course, we should be using the same model for that major assessment. So if it's going to be Part A, Part B, we're both doing it, or if it's going to be one extended exam built into the schedule for our students alone, then we're both using that model.
Okay. Yep.
So whatever is, it will be consistent, it will be discussed and collaborated on by the teachers and the supervisors.
And the last two are just concerning the way you analyze the data. I take my glasses off to keep fogging up. When you analyze that, you analyze the data from within the system, right? The assessments and how they turned out. Is there a model or empirical evidence or kind of anecdotal evidence of this being done elsewhere? I've never heard this. This is kind of a new one.
What is it that you feel you'd never?
Not having a final, not having a midterm, specifically just like normal schedule. This day you have 2 tests, this day you have 2 tests.
So not having a midterm or final schedule would be something that's unique at the high school level. I would agree that this is probably a step for us that maybe other schools haven't taken yet, but certainly the conversation of over-testing happens across all the high schools that I collaborate with. I think sometimes certain conversations can happen within school districts that are willing to look at what is the impact of that instructional method on students. Not all school districts benefit from being able to have conversations like that. I think that change can be very difficult. And therefore, some of the things I've heard from some of my colleagues is they would love to explore this, but they're not sure they would get the support to move it in the right direction.
Now, I'm sure this is probably, since you have your doctorate and you know how to do all these things, but the question is, when you're done, we've done this for a year, I'm assuming you're already thinking of how you're going to assess how this worked.
Yeah.
You've got some way of looking at that already?
Yeah, well, I mean, number one, we can look at, the most important data point for me is the feedback from the staff on how it's impacting our instructional practices. That also goes to some of the upcoming conversations. I know you're scheduled tonight to have a conversation on homework. You know, those are things, it's important that we gather data from the staff to see how it's impacting their instructional practices and their ability to really reach their goals within the curriculum. So that would be the most important data point for me, but we could also look at things like student GPA and see if there's a positive impact overall across the class, just on GPA alone with this change.
More considering what we were talking about earlier with the fact that some students went to college that didn't take a final and then found themselves in...
The top students.
Yeah, I know. Is there some way you can sort of keep in touch, see what happens with our seniors when they become college freshmen, how this affected them, if it did at all?
Yeah, I do believe there is. Schools kind of lose touch with students when they graduate off for obvious reasons. They move on. But I think we can think about some creative ideas where we're trying to get some of that feedback once this has some sort of an effect, maybe beginning with this senior class. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think that's going to be a good way to tell, probably more than a lot of other things,
yeah,
how this program works. But thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions? Gary?
This is more of a just sort of a clarifying thing. So if I'm understanding this correctly, we're not saying that they're not going to take a final test. We're not saying they're not going to take a midterm test. We're saying we're not going to schedule it with half day off of everybody else.
Right.
Exactly.
So I think there's maybe some misunderstanding. They're still going to get assessed.
Not everybody.
And
They are.
the various points, just to be more natural and to be within the class.
Absolutely. Yep.
Mrs. Hennessy?
Just to make sure I'm also understanding, when I'm looking at your 2 points about grade 11 and 12 and 9 and 10, it's kind of worded a little differently. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding, because 9 and 10 have a lot of testing because of additional things that kind of fall there because of MCAS testing and, you know, the new NWEA testing, that kind of thing. I mean, we're still going to need some of that information. So like with
Yes.
the NWEA, that stuff is still going to need to happen. So we're doing that assessment of, you know, anyway.
Yep.
Midterms, finals, those would not necessarily be reduced or going away, or just in certain areas.
It gives us the ability to look at the overall student impact. It gives us the ability to have conversations like in our ELA courses that take an MCAS exam in March. What is the impact of the loss of the 3.5 days plus the prep days for midterms in January, preparing for that exam, right? And if it opens up the flexibility to the discussion, we may have a conversation, collaborate as a school with the teachers, and the teachers may say, we still need to do a major summative midterm for those students because that's what the course requires in order for us to know where students stand and how well they're doing. But then it also opens up the opportunity for teachers to maybe say, well, we can do one of the continuous in-cycle unit assessments throughout January leading up to the MCAS so that we spend more time getting ready for that exam. It gives us multiple options. We don't have to mandate the midterm and finals to happen within certain courses, but we can, right? So it just gives us options.
Yeah, I mean, I totally appreciate the flexibility. That's what you guys are there to do.
Absolutely,
You know, as opposed to having some rigid schedule. I guess there's a portion of me that does feel that I'm still, while I'm appreciative that we don't want to test and test and test so much, I also want to make sure that there's a preparation there for kids to prepare to take tests, because it is part of continual education as well. You know, it's that fine line, and it's, we shouldn't be like it has to happen here. You guys have to find the right rhythm, but I guess I just don't want it to see it just goes away.
It wouldn't be beneficial
Right.
to students, and we have to find that happy medium of making sure that our kids are prepared for excellence, right? And so we can't do away with instructional practices like testing and then still ensure that excellence, so it still needs to be present, to your point.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ryan?
I'm good. They've asked all my questions.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I
Of
just
course.
just thought of something, I'm sorry. We've already had a slight issue with another subject we're bringing up later this evening in terms of parents misunderstanding what we're doing, and to Mr. Gary's point, even we had to kind of clarify ourselves.
Yep.
Is this something, and I'm asking, I guess, other members of the committee, is this something we should, and of course the superintendent, is this something we should be putting out there and then waiting for some feedback from those, from parents and stuff like that, or?
Well,
I'm not inviting any trouble, believe me. I just want to make sure that nobody feels like it's, because we're making some changes, a lot of philosophical change where we do things, which I agree with, believe me. It's just that some people may not agree with them, and I'm just trying to see if we need to put it out there before we actually vote on it.
I would hesitate at putting it out there only because we're not asking to really change the instructional part of this, right? The testing, the major testing will still be there. The only thing that we're requesting with this proposal is just a schedule change that gives us more flexibility within the school day when that's happening. That's all. Just so, and that's the only point I want to make while we're talking about this is healthy instructional habits like major summative assessment need to continue to happen and will continue to happen at Marlborough High School. We are not changing that practice. This is just a proposal to change the traditional way that we've done the schedule in order to provide for more flexibility.
Okay, I don't know, I understand that, but I just know there are some parents who are going to just see on a schedule, no final, no midterm, and just that's all they're going to see, and not know that it's going on, it's just not being done like we've been doing it. So
They're not going to see that week of a schedule.
right.
I think too, what I've tried to do, and this has also impacted the other conversation that you'll all be having tonight, is as the principal, I take a lot of pride in connecting with parents individually if needed to have a conversation about any of these things that they feel is going to impact their child's education, so that they can actually talk to me and hear from me, and I can hear from them, because I've gotten a lot of great feedback from parents as these conversations have come to light. So I think this in turn similarly is not a major instructional change in our philosophy. It's a scheduling change, and I can very easily clear that up with a parent who has a concern with a conversation, and I'd be happy to do that.
I'm just trying to, keep the later problems down to a minimum if we can.
Sure, absolutely. I respect that. Absolutely.
Kidding, right?
I'm not.
This horse is
How
dead.
No, I'm just curious, how will this be communicated to families? That was just my
I was
follow-up.
asking in a roundabout way.
Yeah, I will put a lot of thought into that, I promise. I don't want to open up a can of worms that we are changing anything from a philosophy standpoint.
Right.
So I'll have to be very thoughtful about how that communication goes out so that it doesn't create confusion. Because sometimes with a change like this, where we're simply just asking for a scheduling change, gives a little bit more flexibility to the way we're doing business. We're asking to change the grading criteria to benefit students, right? That it'll be an overall benefit for students when we do that. If that's not worded correctly, then a parent might read that and say, whoa, wait, what are you changing and why are you changing it? So I'll be very thoughtful with how that communication goes out And then I'll also field any questions or concerns that come the way of the district to explain. This is potentially a very positive thing
Oh, yeah.
for all students and teachers, with the right support, of course.
No doubt.
Thank you.
The horses.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried.
The best impression.
May I just quickly say congratulations to former MHS graduate Caitlin Geary. If I heard correctly, she's designing dresses for the Miss America beauty pageant. Mr. Geary, congratulations on that. That's wonderful news.
And I'll just,
Details are minimal, but yes.
wow.
Is that because of a teenager that doesn't talk?
No, she hasn't got much information yet.
Wow, wow, wow.
Congrats. I'm proud of her.
Congratulations, yeah.
And the other Gary's filming us as we speak. He's in the back room. Family fair. Wow, that's amazing about Caitlin.
CBA.
Motion, yeah, thank you,
Thanks,
Dan.
Dan.
Motion to approve the Marlborough Educators Local 888 SEIU, the para educators, and Marlborough School Committee CBA.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. C, policy 7.700, homework.
Thank you very much. Tonight, I have before you a policy that I'd like to put up for a first read. It is a policy relative to homework, policy number 7.700.
And we'll just carry this over into the next meeting, correct?
Yes, unless there's any discussion that people would like to have tonight, we can, I know you probably prefer not, but just in case.
I think we
I'm
need
going
to
to
have-
open that up.
Yeah. I figured you discussed it in committee.
Yeah, but that's not the
Well,
full committee.
Go ahead.
That's not the full committee.
We did have a
And-
subcommittee.
Discussion.
We
Is
do
there a
have-
motion?
Yeah, I made a motion for it to be a first read for tonight, and we'll add it for the agenda for next meeting.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Any, Ms. Matthews?
I do think it's a conversation that we need to have before it comes back to us in 2 weeks. Because I believe that there's a community misunderstanding going on right now, and I think there needs to be some clarity, and I'm glad that Dr. Riley is here, because I know that the biggest, no, you're not leaving. I think the biggest concern has been raised by the high school. And I'm not the policy person, but I'm going to say this, that if you read the prior policy and you read this policy, there never has been a specific wording regarding how much, how little. It's a philosophy, just as Dr. Riley asked us to consider a change on how we execute our midterms and finals, a change in schedule. This is COVID helped us open our eyes even wider to our community and our needs of our students and our population. And this policy, I think, supports the movement forward of our awareness and our needs of our community. So with that being said, I don't know.
So, dying on the stake here. Yes, very much so. I think the hope is to communicate support for the education of our children through what means may be necessary. And there's no one set way of doing it, that you must follow a cookie cutter way. Things were adjusted during COVID, when many of our students were at home and they were behind a computer screen for a huge portion of the day. There was a recognition that there were some true benefits of allowing for family time and participation in things of being with those that you care about and extensions of your life past just academics. And that was something that has also come up in conversation. And not that we want to lose any of that, but we want to enhance it. That's not saying that the rigor of the academics is not important, not needed at all. Obviously, academics is at the forefront for our district. That said, homework, or as we're going to say, an extension of classwork, really, is going to be necessary. And it's going to vary depending upon the needs of the courses across the district. There's going to be different needs, whether it's in elementary, in middle school, or in high school. And there will be homework or extended classwork that will be necessary for different courses. What we have put before you for consideration and discussion is an overall policy in support of classwork or coursework that may need to extend outside of the classroom. And that's going to differ for all of our students because of the diversity and the fabric of our community. Some will take place at home. Some could actually take place sitting on the concrete outside of the school right before sport practice. So we need to recognize as a community that we need to support each other in the extension of classwork. And it's going to be important for that to just be an element, but it shouldn't be an element that becomes so pivotal that it becomes a stumbling block for some of our students. And that's where we do not want, as a community, there to be a stumbling block for some of our students. That is not saying that there is not a requirement, because our hope is that to be a good student, you're going to need to take care of getting these things done. But that's also saying we're not quite sure that there needs to be a homework or an extended classwork element that is graded with so much weight that, just like we were talking about for the testing, it becomes an impediment as opposed to a support system. So that's our overall hope and belief, that our policy was put together in such a way, working with students' voices, administration, our staff, and then the school committee is trying to put out something that really represents the bigger picture and then allows for each individual school level to add their necessary information. It's not going to be a set time. It's not a set number of minutes or days, but it allows them to put a little bit more meat to the bones. And then obviously within each class, there'll be a little bit more meat too. So that's the bigger picture behind here. Okay? So hope that helps to provide some context. Thank you.
Other questions? Any other questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. So the next policy that will be here for first read, just to, we can do it for removal? Yeah. Okay, so the next policy that is up for removal would be policy number 3.900, which is the food service charging policy. As you all know, this was a policy that had been in place, but with the free/reduced, but free lunch that we now offer, it seems quite silly to actually have a food service charging policy when we are not doing it. So we would like to remove it from our website, from the books, and yes, we will keep it somewhere out in the distance in case it ever needs to be resurrected, but the motion would be to remove it from the website and our policy books. Thank you.
Motion made and seconded to approve the removal of 3.900 food services charging. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Acceptance of donations, Donor's Choice, Brain Breaks, and Chair Organizations. Organizers. Good Now Brothers Elementary School, Ms. Catone's class. Good Now Brothers Elementary School, $533. Mrs. Catone's class, $321.53.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Donor's Choice Time for Kids subscriptions. Goodnow Brothers Elementary School, $184.56.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Donor's Choice Classroom Books. Goodnow Brothers Elementary School, $378.
Motion to approve, sorry.
Motion made and seconded to approve.
Dozed off.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Reports of committees. Any reports of committees? Ms. Hennessy?
Policy did obviously have a meeting recently. We will have another meeting coming up. That date is still to be decided, but we're just continuing to keep on working through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, members forum. Mrs. Matthews?
I have reviewed the warrant, and I will be signing it. I keep forgetting it today.
Thank you. Ms. Bodenhenger?
Thank you. I just wanted to send out kudos to Mrs. Moran, for her cool things in my classroom. It's so fun. Like it's on various forms of social media, but she's going into classrooms and teachers are showing cool things that they have in their classroom. And I was particularly moved by when she went into Jeff Rosinski, the athletic director, and he has a poster on his wall with a statement from Leon Shanahan, who graduated in 2016 and is currently in his second year of graduate school at LSU, and is one of the captains of the football team, and will be playing Saturday. So if you're into college football, tune in. He's number 56 for LSU, and it's pretty exciting.
I just did mine today. Miss Sibylla and I did our office ones, and
Cool
hopefully
things.
they'll be up soon.
Excellent.
So.
It's very fun.
And most importantly, Liam is kicking butt.
Oh, my God. He's doing amazing.
Yeah.
But on so many levels. I mean, he's smart, and he's doing so many great things.
Any other members?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.
Yeah.